Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, Life, Law, Bin. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's wonderful to see you here again. And it is indeed pupillage interview season. So I thought that it would be befitting for me to give my top tips for mastering pupillage interviews. First of all, huge congratulations if you have been extended an invitation to attend a pupillage interview. Very well done. It is a very difficult process. And also, congratulations to those of you who did submit pupillage applications and are anticipating that invitation to interview. My first top tip: get into a winner's mindset. Okay. You were able to convince barristers that you have what it takes to do the job. So remember that confidence is key. Whether or not you're a spiritual or religious person, you can practice daily affirmations. I will obtain pupillage. I will be a fantastic barrister. I will smash this interview. I deserve to be offered an interview. Remember that you're bringing your unique experiences and insight to chambers, and you are an asset. Oftentimes, applicants forget that they're assets as well, and that they're bringing these experiences which would be beneficial to chambers and their clients. And on that note, you really should be mentally assessing whether Chambers is the right fit through their interactions with you and their interview. You need to be assessing whether or not they are the right fit, the place that you want to go to undertake your pupillage. Most importantly, do not be arrogant during your interview. Although you should be confident, arrogance is never ideal. Remember that pupillage is the inception, folks, of your journey as a baby barrister, so you still have a lot to learn. Tip two: interview preparation. This is definitely vital. You definitely do not want to attend an interview and not be well prepared. So, what can you do? You can keep abreast with current affairs and start developing opinions on current affairs. So, for example, as at today's date, we do know that the trending news item, or one of the trending news items, is the fact that the International Criminal Court issued two arrest warrants, one for Russian President Vladimir Putin, Mr. Vladimir Putin, and Russia's Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Vovo-Belova. And hopefully I've got that pronunciation right. But two arrest warrants have been issued. So you really should be keeping abreast of something like that, and other trendy current affairs, because you never know. In pupillage interviews, panels tend to like to get your views, your opinions on certain things. So it's good to have some kind of contextual background knowledge. In that vein, you should also be keeping abreast with legal news and developing opinions on them as well. So we do know that in the past, the criminal bar was striking as well, and we do know that as at today's date, there's now this trendy topic about lawyers vowing not to prosecute climate activists. So what you want to be doing is following those news stories and developing your opinions on them, so that you know you have a good working knowledge of these things and you can discuss them with the panel. You should also be following social media accounts. So you can look on Twitter, for example. There's a very lively UK legal Twitter. So you can look for barristers, incoming pupil barristers as well, pupil barristers, our very own International Future Barrister Mentorship, Life Law BIM's very own International Future Barrister Mentorship. You can find us on Twitter at INTL_FBM. And you really should be following these different social media accounts. Also look on LinkedIn, because usually on Twitter, there are threads that barristers usually post, or these accounts usually post. And on LinkedIn, sometimes some extended posts that you can get some top tips, or you can get some insight, so that you're well prepared for your interview. You should also be reading Chambers pupillage blogs and listening to their podcasts. Um, Obviously, if relevant, because all chambers don't have podcasts, but you want to be listening to anything that they're disseminating. Ensure that you also read their pupils and juniors' profiles. This would allow you to gain an understanding of the nature of the work they conduct in their first and second six and in their early years of developing a practice. You want to know what these juniors are doing. So definitely look it up, read it. Don't be clueless on it. As it pertains to prepared assessments, you should be conducting thorough case analysis. And for those of you who are currently undertaking the bar course or who have graduated from the bar course, you would be familiar with that terminology. For those persons who haven't undertaken the bar courses yet, when I'm speaking about case analysis, it may be helpful for you to do a chronology of events. If it's applicable, this just helps you to get a working knowledge of the dates and the sequence of events when different things occurred. You should be identifying the relevant facts, the strengths and weaknesses of clients' arguments, and then developing persuasive submissions based on the most compelling arguments. And never forget the law. So you should be realizing, what are the most relevant provisions here, and how can I use the law to argue for my client, the best interest in my client. As you are also preparing for your interview, I do encourage you to create a table identifying all the skills that a barrister should have. So that could be in column one. And your second column could be examples of situations where you've proven that you have these skills. And then a third column, which could be an optional column, could be lessons learned from the situation you explain or the example. And I find that that's extremely helpful because that would help you with your competency based questions, like tell us about a time when you displayed empathy, or tell us about a time when you demonstrated your leadership skills or you persuaded someone, etc., etc. You'd be able to remember your table, and say, oh yes, hang on, I remember I did this, because you were able to draw it out and explain it on your table. So that will help you in the interview. And in terms of preparation, you definitely want to be preparing your application form. And you might be thinking, application form? Um, I already wrote that up and I know everything on it. So why should I be doing that? Definitely read your application form again before you go into that interview. And what you want to be doing is evaluating the strengths and the weaknesses in your application form and developing corresponding questions and responses. Ask yourself, for example, what is the most significant weakness in my application? How can I mitigate against that weakness? What is the biggest strength in my application? Have I obtained any more achievements since the submission of my application? And how does this additional achievement help me to be the ideal candidate for pupillage? What is my X factor or my unique selling point? Why am I the ideal candidate to obtain pupillage at this set? So you should definitely be asking yourself these questions, so that you come to grips with the application form and have a fair assessment of it, and none of these questions would be a surprise to you in the interview. My third tip: mock interviews, folks. You can't get away from it. You must practice in order to hone your interview skills. Practice, some people say practice makes perfect, some others say practice makes permanent. But whatever it is, folks, you must practice. You can't expect to just have developed those skills and you're not practicing. You need to flex that muscle, okay? You can request mock interviews with your mentor, friends, family, barristers, pupil barristers, and incoming pupil barristers. So reach out to them on LinkedIn. And some persons, if they do have the time, will be eager to fit you in, because a lot of persons are busy. They may not have the time, but that doesn't mean that you can't request mock interviews. My mum did the bulk of my mock interviews. I did have pupil barristers. I did have my friends and colleagues at the bar mock interview me, but my mum did the bulk of my mock interviews, and she does not work in the law. And I'm just trying to explain that you can get anyone to assist you with your mock interviews. So thanks for that, Mum. In your spare time, you can also ask yourself and develop responses. So you might be thinking, oh, in order for me to practice, I need someone else. No, sometimes in your spare time, ask yourself questions and start working on these responses, right? Um, and as you practice with your mock interviews, you will improve your tones and pace, your body language, and your eye contact, your impromptu skills as well, and the way that you structure your responses and how you answer these questions under pressure. This is very, very important. Okay, because when we get nervous, some of us don't know that we may have nervous tics. You might start to speak a lot quicker than you're accustomed speaking, and you might not realize that your tone might get a little bit wobbly and that kind of thing. Or you might start shaking your hand or tapping that pen on the table. So someone else looking on, who's interviewing you, mock interviewing you, will be able to help and say, um, hang on, you're doing this, maybe try to limit or eliminate that. My fourth tip plays really well into my third tip. Develop interview banks of questions. Okay, so with every mock interview, write down the question that was asked. With every real interview, write down the question that was asked. So you should be writing down competency based questions, application based questions, debate questions, ethical questions as well, and practicing or coming up with responses, suitable responses. Remember, you shouldn't be learning these verbatim, but I find that when you start to think about how you would respond to certain things, it comes naturally in the interview. And you should be creating some kind of dossier with these questions, as I was indicating. And if you're currently pursuing your studies or you're a recent graduate, contact your university's career service department to arrange mock interviews and to obtain pupillage resources and guidance. My fifth tip: be polite to everyone at chambers, folks. You never know if your interactions are being assessed. No, I expect all of you to be lovely people and to be polite and well mannered, okay? But I just must give you that caution. No one wants to work with an impolite, unmanly person, or ill-mannered person. That's only nice to those who they think are important. Your soft skills matter. Be polite, be kind to everyone that you encounter. And really and truly, you should be doing this daily. You should be polite and kind to everyone you encounter. Okay. My next tip: structure your responses. This is so important. And as we get nervous, sometimes our structure just falls by the wayside. But you need to be disciplined and you need to structure and signpost your responses. So, for certain responses, you should probably be starting, there are three main reasons, there are two main reasons. Firstly, secondly, note that I'm signposting there. For your competency based questions, for example, tell us about a time when you had to persuade someone. You should be using your STAR technique. What is STAR, you may be asking? I'm sure many of you know it already, but S is for situation. You should be explaining that situation in order to give the interviewer the context of the example. Now, focus on sharing relevant and necessary details. Please do not go off on a tangent. Be focused. T, task. Discuss the task or challenge that you have the responsibility of resolving and or completing. A is for action. Discuss the action or the steps undertaken in order to accomplish this task. And at that time, you can highlight any skills or character traits that you utilize. And R is for result. Explain that outcome. Explain the outcome of your actions. Highlight any results or commendations given to you. Okay. Once you follow that structure, your interviewer would be able to follow you carefully. And that's something that many of us struggle with. Many persons struggle with that. So please pay attention to that tip. The next tip, make sure that you choose the most effective examples. This demonstrates that as an advocate, you know your strongest arguments, okay? So please do not start with your weakest argument or your weakest example or an irrelevant example. That wouldn't bode very well for you, and it won't reflect well in the marks that the panel would have to assign to you. So know the most effective example and choose wisely. No, my next tip. If you are asked a question and you don't know the answer, don't make up a response. Remember, you're supposed to be demonstrating your integrity. So be candid with the panel. Try to identify the purpose of the question and then provide a logical answer. Okay. You don't have to know everything. It's about how you deal with what you do not know. Because remember, in reality, when we get into the courts, when you get into the courts, there may be something the judge asks you that you might not know. It will not bode well for you as counsel to be telling a lie, um, or an untruth. So just be candid. You may be a little taken aback with my next tip, but enjoy the interview. This is what you've been working towards. Okay, you have been accumulating life experiences, work experiences, voluntary experiences for this moment. So go enjoy it. The panel is genuinely rooting for your success. So don't get too caught up in your nerves. Have a conversation with them. Okay. So that means even before you go in, if you need to listen to some music that will give you a little pep in your step, you do that. Some people do the Superman pose before they go in. You do that. You practice your affirmations. You tell yourself, I will smash this interview. I will do well, but enjoy it. Have a lovely conversation with them. They're genuinely rooting for your success. And ultimately, after the interview, write down the questions and add them to your question bank. As I said, reflect on the ones you think that you could improve upon and note how you would answer it differently. Okay. Then breathe out, folks. Congratulate yourself for getting through it and treat yourself. It doesn't matter how terribly or well you thought it went, forget about it and celebrate a pending achievement or a lesson, because with every interview, you've either smashed it and it's an achievement or it's a lesson. And the good thing about lessons is that you've taken something away from it, and it means that at the next interview, you will go forth and you will do exceedingly well. Okay. That's it, folks. Those are my top tips. The only thing left for you to do is to go into that interview and kill it, figuratively, people, figuratively. All right. But go ahead and do exceedingly well and be proud of yourself. I'm already proud of you, so please be proud of yourself and be kind to yourself. That's a wrap, folks. I do look forward to seeing you very soon on the next video. Have a good one and take care of yourself. Bye.